Bombshell report coming out of The Athletic today about the New York Jets. We got to talk about it. What is going on, guys? Welcome back to Talking Jets with Tigo. My name is Tigo, and before we talk about all of this absolute nonsense that's coming out of The Athletic about the New York Jets and trying to break it down and trying to understand what's happening, I do have a really quick announcement that I did want to be just share with you guys. If you haven't watched the Talking Jets panel on the Talking Jets channel yesterday, you might not be aware, but I have officially joined the Talking Jets crew as a member, and we'll be doing content on that channel Wednesdays at 8 p.m. Me and Green Bean are doing a brand new show called Armchair GM, where we will be dissecting and breaking down how a general manager will go about creating and making decisions and the process that goes about scouting, evaluating the whole nine, so that not only can we try to get into the mind of Joe Douglas and general managers of the New York Jets to better understand them, but just to be the best and most informed group of fans out there so that we know what we're talking about better than most. But we have to talk about today's article that came out from The Athletic today, from Diana Rossini and from Zach Rosenblatt, and I really don't know where I fall in on all of this stuff, because there's a couple of things that, like, you gotta have a conversation about, which is the New York Jets building hasn't been a leaky building for all that much, like, for the time that it's been here, right? And I know a lot of people are going to point to certain things, but, like, the leaks have really ramped up recently, which is kind of weird, right? You got to correlate Aaron Rodgers coming in and then leaks coming in and things like that. And some of the new coaching staff and things that are happening on the offensive side of the ball. And you have to start looking there to realize and to look and see what's happening on that side of the ball, right? But I just find it strange that a building that hasn't been very leaky is now incredibly leaky, and a building that hasn't been able to have a single reliable source, now they have 30 people inside of the building that they can talk to. So there is that aspect of it, which kind of puts me in pause. The other thing that I kind of have to, whenever I read these articles, is that nobody else has made any of these reports. Nobody else is having these types of articles and these breakdowns when it comes from the people that are covering the New York Jets. It's just Zach and Diana who are making this report. It's the same thing with Zach and Diana having this report about Zach being reluctant to play, something that they still stand on, as they had people in the building telling him that it was true. And part of me has to question the validity of these claims, because how much of this is they want to be first? They don't care if they're right. They just want to be first. In a 24-hour news cycle, in a day and age where it's so quick to, you have to be the first one or it doesn't matter. I see that on YouTube, where if news breaks and I'm the third or fourth person to upload a video, that video will do significantly worse if I'm not first. If I'm first, that video will do significantly better than if I'm second or third or fourth, or I just upload something later on in the day. And how much of that bleeds into this whole situation with the team and these news and this reporting, who knows? But let's talk about some of the contents that were in the article, talking specifically about it seemed like Robert Saleh was playing the blame game a little bit and got a little frustrated with how the reporting for the New York Jets was handled, in terms of he felt that it was very unfair that, like, the Giants are also falling apart and they're not getting as much of the scrutiny as the Jets are, and also that he was being asked to go out there and win games without his starting quarterback, and that when he looked at some of the other great coaches and compared their situations, that all of them had gone, like, were losing, like, had losing records. The only exception of a guy who was having or finding success when they lost their starting quarterback was Mike Tomlin. And that might be a different conversation and argument of, is Kenny Pickett even a starting quarterback in the NFL? That's a different conversation for a different video and honestly a different channel, because we're not a Steelers channel here. But there was a lot of this, what seemed like moaning and groaning from Robert Saleh in the article, which doesn't necessarily match up with what we see from Robert Saleh in all of the content that we're given. Now, how much of that is, filtered for our own eyes? Obviously, you got to protect the fan base from, you have to protect your coaches from the fan base and all of that stuff, but it just doesn't seem like on character for Coach Saleh to be complaining. Like, from everything that we've seen, specifically like when it comes to Coach Saleh and Coach Brick, it kind of reminds me of like extreme ownership. Like, everything is going to be on them. Like, that's the messaging, that's what we see, and that's what happens there, which is again a little counterintuitive, but I would totally understand like if he got into that situation. Another report in the article was that when Aaron Rodgers went down, the mandate went from this is a playoff team, go make the playoffs, to go and win 7 games, which they got, but is really disappointing because it shows from the ownership down that they just kind of gave up on last season. Aaron Rodgers went down, and Woody really did handcuff this team and say, you know what, we're not going to invest the resources. We're not going to put things into making this team better. Just stay afloat. Just get 7 wins. Just don't be a dumpster fire. And you could argue that the team was a dumpster fire, but they got 7 wins. They did what they were told to do. Which, again, going on to a different report that showed that Woody Johnson was active on Twitter and would bring tweets into the meetings with Joe Douglas and Robert Saleh to show them, like, Woody, get off your phone, get off of Twitter, and just stop talking to the, like, I get it, you want to be involved, but, like, don't be that guy. Don't be the guy who's going in and, like, they don't need to see tweets. Like, that's not the focus that needs to be had. But I think the most damning thing of it all, of this article, was when they were talking about the offensive side of the ball. And I think we're starting to see a little bit more of the Nathaniel Hackett mindset that he went into with this season, which I think was a concern, which was, I think Hackett came into this season saying, look, I'm getting paid a ton of money. I don't really need to work all that hard because Aaron Rodgers is going to be the quarterback. And, like, yeah, we got to come up with the offensive scheme, but it's not going to be, like, I don't really need to adjust. Rodgers is going to make the adjustments. I don't really need to think or plan that far ahead because Rodgers is going to make all those adjustments. And it almost came in like Rodgers is the offensive coordinator and, he's just kind of his assistant. Like, Hackett's just Rodgers' assistant. And look, if there's any quarterback in the NFL that you're going to give the power to essentially be his own offensive coordinator, Aaron Rodgers is that guy, right? It was like Aaron, it was Ben when he was still around in Pittsburgh, and it was, Tom when he was still around. Like, those are the guys who are intelligent enough to essentially be their own offensive coordinators and to operate and run their own offense because they've been doing it for so long. But that's not a mentality that you want to see from your offensive coordinator. And I think another piece of evidence that really kind of is damning to Hackett, but kind of takes or should take some of the blame off of Coach Carter, is like, apparently Coach Carter went up to Hackett and said, like, hey, can we start helping Dwayne Brown against the Dallas Cowboys game? Because Micah Parsons is going to wreck this game by himself if we don't give him some support. And he didn't adjust to the at all, and Dwayne Brown didn't get the help, and Micah Parsons went and wrecked that game. And so we're starting to see some things come in, and this is what scares me with the offense, is that I think we're getting to a point to where we're going to have too many voices, too many cooks in the kitchen when it comes to the offense. In the article, it shows a report and makes a comment that they're bringing in more voices to lessen the role of play design and play call when it comes to Hackett. And they're going to be a more collaborative way of going and doing things. And we see that with, obviously, we brought in a new running backs coach because we needed to, brand new wide receivers coach from a previous Jets era coming in as well. But I don't think he's going to be wide receivers coach. I don't think they're going to let go of Azani or anything like that. And I don't think Azani should go. But you're going to get to a point, in my opinion, where it's just too many cooks in the kitchen. There's too many opinions flying. There's too many things going on. The reality is that if it was me and if it was my situation, if all of this is true, which again you have to take with a grain of salt, if all of the things that are being said is true, You have to eliminate everybody's additional roles. Coach Carter, you're no longer run game coordinator. You are the offensive line coach. Asiani, you're no longer the 2-minute drill coach. You are just a wide receivers coach. And just take away everyone's additional responsibilities. And then you just say, you're just going to coach up your line units. And then you really just need to get Nathaniel Hackett and Aaron Rodgers in a room to build out the offensive play scheme that they want. And just, that's it. I think because, I don't know, you're in a weird situation because I think we're getting to a point where we're going to have too many people involved in play calling and too many things going on, and we're not going to see, the more people involved in decision making, the more people, you're going to see failures in communication and breakdowns in communication. The offensive line isn't going to get something that the rest of the offense needs to get done because there's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 people that need to go, that a play needs to go through before it gets to the offensive line or the wide receivers or Aaron. And so you're by putting in more moving parts, you create more points of failure, more points of tension and friction. And just think of it as a machine. The more moving parts you have, the less efficient of a machine it is. The more lubricant and things that you need to do to put into the machine to make sure that it doesn't fall apart. I don't know. Obviously, I think that Aaron Rodgers overcomes a lot of the offensive dysfunction currently in New York right now. I think that if you put Aaron Rodgers on that team last year, even with that offensive line as bad as it was and as injured as it was, we're probably a 10-win team. There are a couple of games that we lost because Zach Wilson isn't Aaron Rodgers. That's it. That's just purely this done. Zach Wilson, Tim Boyle, all of those guys, they're just not Aaron Rodgers. And obviously he would win those games. But if we really want to be competitive and go in and win a Super Bowl, there are a lot of concerns that I have about this team outside of player personnel when it comes to the wide receiver room, interior defensive linemen, offensive tackles, and so on and so forth. You just kind of have to hope that Aaron Rodgers is the guy that we all know that he can be and that he's proven he can be, and he can overcome the dysfunction that is in the offensive side of the ball that he is kind of a part of by having Hackett be the offensive coordinator and different things like that. Again, I'm going to take everything that The Athletic put out there with a grain of salt because obviously their goal is to be first, not right. So we'll see what happens as the season goes on. Let me know what you guys think in the comment section below. And last but not least, go Jets.